web. Using code embedded in the pages of its clients' websites, including those of most major media and news companies, Chartbeat determines if, how much, and how long we're actually reading a page. Schwartz told me that the average reader spends no more than 36 seconds on the average news story. When the company tested the comprehension of people who'd read a news story, they found that only 37% could answer a question about a detail at the end of the article, a result that's only slightly better than guessing. The issue here is how reading on-screen impairs concentration. Naomi S. Barron, a professor at the American University and the author of Words on Screen, The Fate of Reading in a Digital World, conducted a cross-national study on it. Of the university students in her survey, 92% said it was easiest to concentrate when reading material in print compared to on a screen. As she explains, digital technologies are not designed for deep reading. When we use those technologies for the types of mental activity that print does so well, especially reflective, analytical reading, we generally don't manage the same level of focus. Here's what this means to you. Anything you write, an email, a web page, a tweet, must compete with everything else that your audience reads. Since they're almost certainly reading it on a screen, and probably a tiny smartphone screen, you can measure their attention span in tens of seconds. If you keep them interested long enough to learn a bit more, you can get your point across. If you don't, they'll just perceive what you wrote as bullshit. That's why we all feel we are continually surrounded by bullshit. But regardless of our attention spans, why is the text we read so lame? A lot has to do with the decline of editing. No one edits what we read. We're in the middle of a vicious cycle of content. We read all day long. When we're not at our desks, we're on our smartphones. This creates an endless demand for things to read. Certainly, media companies and social networks like Facebook aim to fill that need. But so do your coworkers. Your managers feel free to demand that you read what they've written. Your colleagues think nothing of sending an email to dozens or hundreds of people. Marketers want in on this party as well. Their ads, websites, apps, and marketing emails insinuate themselves into every pixel on your screen that's not already filled with content from media and colleagues. The result is a constant blast of content. But that content is very different from what the previous generation of office workers consumed. Why? Let's examine what's different. Think back for a moment to the world of 1980. The average consumer or business person at that time had no email, and there was no internet. What we read was printed: newspapers, magazines, books, and the occasional memo. Our reading material came from media companies that mass-produced printed material and distributed it to hundreds of thousands of magazine subscribers, book readers, and direct mail recipients. Professional writers or marketing copywriters produced it. Since it was expensive to create, it went through an experienced editor who reviewed both content and language. See Figure 1 on the enhancement PDF. In the workplace, executives who wrote memos had secretaries to type them, and the secretaries prevented the executives from saying anything too stupid. The picture now is vastly different. Any idiot can type and distribute content to dozens or even thousands of people, and many do, whether through email or a blog. Most of what you read comes directly from the fingertips of the person who wrote it to your eyeballs, with no editorial process. See Figure 2 on the enhancement PDF. I don't just mean editing for grammar. No one is editing for content either. Bullshit is communication that wastes the reader's time by failing to communicate clearly and accurately. With no editors, clarity and accuracy are hit or miss, and bullshit is inevitable. Today's reader still reads lots of highly edited media and ads. Even on media sites, however, that content is mingled with native ads intended to look like editorial content, and contributed content, articles submitted by companies and published as content. That material doesn't get the same